All right, I've started recording. This is part 2 in an ongoing series called Educating James. The topic he chose and was excited about was the record collector mentality.
Well, if I remember what Zach thinks about the record collecting mentality, this may be educating Zach.
There are people who have said there are things I don't know. I've heard that opinion around. For context, I often say that when I work with James at LOTF, he has a record collector mentality, and so he's good at thinking of ideas and publishing that I wouldn't think of because I don't collect RPGs. I just get them so I can play them for the most part. Go for it.
I realized at some point, it's like, oh, I have 5 Gamma Bomb albums. They all sound pretty much the same, maybe the first one. And then the next Gamma Bomb album come out, it's like, well, I've got all the Gamma Bomb albums, what am I going to do? Not get the new one? And I listen to it, and it's like, okay, it sounds exactly like the other ones. I now have 6 Gamma Bomb albums. And on one hand, I realize that's crazy. On the other hand, I would like to encourage all of you followers of Lamentations of the Flame Princess to embrace that mentality. What you're saying about me having the record collector mentality, I want to point out that this is true. I could have just a paperback Edgar Allan Poe volume of all the stuff, but I have a leather-bound, gilded-edged, unabridged version, which I haven't taken the best of care of, but it has traveled across continents with me over 30 years. I had a perfectly good copy, DVD copy of Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, but when I found out that they had this
fancy box, both 4K and Blu-ray, the international and the British comes with like a graphic novel, information book, collector cards. I don't even have a 4K player, and it's like, I have to have that damn thing. What is this? Centipede Press, the Fawford and Grey Mouser series, and I've got all of them. Over the years I've collected them. I haven't even broken the shrink wrap. I still have, the old paperback version, $1 each. I want the fancy version. They're great. And get freaking potato chip stains on them, so I just read these.
And I just knocked over my next example, so pardon me for a second.
What James doesn't know is we've hidden a mousetrap on the floor inside the book.
Okay.
I had all of the Celtic Frost CD, even Cold Lake. But some years back when I did the hardcover digibook, when I first got into Lovecraft, I bought the hardcover version straight from Arkham House. Variorum editions, or however you say that? And it's like, oh, these are the latest corrected text. And again, I haven't even broken the shrink wrap. These are freaking expensive to order and ship from the U.S.
When I want to read them, I still use the Arkham, but I just like... Oh, I've got the fancy versions. Well, I remember I rubbed my balls on one of the books when I was promoting it, and they still sold. The reason I say that is not to brag. I just want to point out that when I produce and publish things like this, and something fancy like this, or, something fancy like this, or this, it's not simply money grubbing. It's like, I am a consumer and a believer on that end.
I have to have that damn thing.
As a fan of the record collector fancy version stuff. So my wanting to make fancy ass versions of some of these books is an extension of that. Having the most beautiful versions of things that I like appeals to me. It's like the thing I would most want to spend money on. More, paying rent is annoying. Paying bills is annoying. Paying some extravagant amount for a fancy-ass version of a book that I already have, but I know I really, really love. It's like that's a privilege to be able to do. And then you get it, and it's just like, it's it's surrounding yourself with beautiful things. That's what that is.
I remember when we did Vornheim, my thing was like, get it out, do it fast, make it, efficiency is everything. It's going to be short, slim. We don't have a lot of pages, cram everything in. I did not care about the book values of it. I just wanted it to be efficient and useful, and not literally fall apart when you were using it. It was zine-like in that way. And then when we did Red and Pleasant Land, I was happy to go all the way the other way. like the most fetishistic record collectory book we could put together.
Yeah, but even Vornheim wasn't really zine because I think you had the idea to use the covers as actual game content. And then whose idea was it? My idea for the reversible sleeve, the jacket, to have stuff on both sides?
I think maybe you had an idea to have a sleeve at all. And then I was like, well, if we're having, but I mean, for me, all that stuff was like the opposite of buying a book you don't read. It was like every surface has to be useful because there may never be another book. Like to me, like printing on the outside, printing on the covers, printing on whatever, that was simply about making the object as usable as possible. And then when we had a bigger budget, I was like, oh, well, we can actually add a page that has nothing on it. Like once, I believe I bought on CD, I don't know, maybe an I Hate God album that I already had on tape. And then like, whenever I'm overdrawn on my account, and I'm like, if I had that $20 back right now, then I'd be able to eat today. I think deeper down, this has to do with a very philosophically essential thing about you, which is you hate people.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily exclusive that loving things means hating people. I mean,
I
in
agree
my
with
case,
that. It's not. It's not that simple. I think literally, you don't go, I could fly to France, like with the money I spent on these things. Like you don't go, I could go out to a place and there would be humans there and I would meet them and maybe like some of them. Or like, I think for you, and I don't know about every other record collector in the world, but I think your idea, you're like, you know, the girls who are like, I want to be I live alone in the woods in a library with my cats, right? Like you've decided that the amount of people you know and the amount of human contact you get via playing D&D once in a while and having a girlfriend is it. You don't want anything else from humans if you can possibly help it. And so when you make money, you go, how do I simply ensconce myself further in the edifice of my own mind? And so you're like, I have no, like, this is, you say, like, I would rather spend money on this than anything else.
Well, it's not quite as limited as, you know, playing D&D once in a while and having a girlfriend and nothing else. There's maybe one or two other things. But otherwise, I think you might be largely correct. For example, last weekend I saw Blood Incantation twice. Once in Gothenburg, once in Helsinki. Oh my God, this is awful. I felt like people. It's like, I know it's very good for the bands for them to sell out a venue. It's very annoying for me as a fan to be in that venue.
So that was
sure. I mean, I think there's lots of reasons not to like a crush. You know, that's one thing. But you also go to shows constantly, and you say you've never talked to anyone at any of these shows or befriended any of these metalheads you must be seeing twice a month, half of these people.
I've never initiated a conversation.
So I can't imagine going up to someone and saying, hey, what are you drinking? Or, hey, this band's pretty good. I mean, what are they going to say?
Well, you know, they say, hey, this band's pretty good. And you're like, they're really good at music. I'm glad that they make it. I own so many of their albums in a variety of formats.
I'm not quite that bad.
I'm positing initiating conversations with other human beings and collecting records as opposite behaviors somehow. Like the record is like, I know exactly what I'm getting, and I'm getting it in the nicest way possible. Right? And another person is like, I have no idea what I'm going to get, and I have the choice to get nothing. If I want, that seems easier, safer. But you like games. You like playing RPGs, and you like old school games, and those are premised on unpredictability. When Jeff says there are lizard people coming out of the ceiling breathing fire, you're like, all right, here we are. when someone says, I'm from Pittsburgh, you're like, what do I do? How do I handle this?
Well, how I handle a person from Pittsburgh could have like real life consequences.
Okay, so what are you afraid of?
It's not being afraid. It's just what's the point?
The D1 million table of things that could happen when you meet a person opens up at that moment. Here's someone from Pittsburgh. Maybe one day they'll be your best friend. Maybe next week they'll be your sister-in-law. Or you're just afraid you'll be wasting time you could have spent reading and rereading a book.
Well, yes, there's that, because that, oh God, see, I don't know how many times I've been out with people.
4 or 5?
I've been out with people, I just think, I could have been home jerking off instead of doing this.
As both a creator of expensive books and a porn actor, thank God for people like you. All right, record collector mentality. Do we find the more deluxe you make a book, the more people like it, period?
Not necessarily. It's not simply, making it fancy and expensive simply means it's going to be the best thing ever. That, and it's always a risk, because something that I think is cool in the moment. I mean, having the pulse on the public zeitgeist is not exactly my forte. So when I have an idea of, this is going to be the most awesome thing ever, there's always like, well, you're going to be stuck with 1,000 of these in the storage room. When you have something that's of good quality and it looks great, that's better than something that is of excellent quality and it looks okay. I mean, I remember, like Carcosa, there were a lot of sales that happened just because people thought it was such a neat book. And then they open it up and start looking at how that was done, how it looks inside. And they were like, oh, shit, this is... Because I think that was our really first fancy book.
Yeah, and I also felt like when I had it in PDF for a while before I got the book. And it was a completely different experience. Like, that book physically, the size, it just feels like a guidebook. Like, it had so much more juju as an object and I wanted to use it right away. In a way, when I got the PDF, I didn't care. But I was also because, like, I can write in it.
Oh, Jesus. So you have this fancy-ass book that's well done, and then you want to scribble your shit in it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I love writing in books so much. I love when I go to a used bookstore and I get a book, and it's got any kind of handwritten notes, because it's like this window into the other person, Like, I love that.
Yeah, it's why I can't, like, ever... I learned real quick I can't lend people books because you'll get them back with the corners bent, or it's like, yeah, it's
What I wanted to show you, because I thought it might have like a Lovecraftian effect on you. Now, that I illustrated every page of my favorite novel, Gravity's Rainbow. That was like one of the first art projects I did. This is my copy of Gravity's Rainbow.
What the hell did you do to it?
I read it twice. This is what happened.
What do you do when you read a book? Jesus.
So whenever I find a quote that I want to remember, I draw on the spine a little arrow where the tip is actually on the page, so you can find it. Like, if you got a copy of, like, a used copy of a cool old game, right? And then you saw pencil notes in there from some old dungeon master, would you be like, ugh? Or would you be like, oh, that's neat?
I would probably be like, ugh. Because now, this is bad since I don't have near the money I used to have for this kind of thing, but I've got it in my head that I don't like buying used things if I can help it. Because it's like... It has the... It's like it has the aura of, oh, somebody didn't want this one. Somebody got rid of this. It's got rejection on it.
But it's rejection from some idiot, right? I mean...
Well, you never know. Maybe
Or they
someone
died.
maybe someone died and their family just dumped shit off to somebody that sold this off, or they went broke and had to sell things that they loved, and so there's heartbreak attached to it, and it's just like there's something about the aura that if I get something new, it's like, oh, this is what was supposed to happen, and then this is meant just for me, and
You're so sensitive.
it's
You are. You're a sensitive guy. Everything has an aura and a touch and a.
well, there's a reason I want these things around me. So they do. When I'm surrounded by things that I like and how they make me feel, it's that they're all dog-eared and written in. It's not. That's not the attachment. It's the physical thing. Just the fact, if it's like sort of I can keep a plant alive. It's like, oh, look, I have some capability of responsibility in this world.
So
It's a little bit.
you're being reminded that you could not destroy a Lovecraft 3-volume set. Like you're reminded how responsible you are by looking at it.
Yeah, that's a little bit of it, but yes.
Oh my, because oh god, today I thought I broke my chair. I tipped over in the chair when trying to throw away cellophane in the garbage can and tuck it in. But I didn't just want to stand up and go over and then push it down. I was just trying to lean over the chair, and then the whole chair flipped over, and the pile of stuff on the desk falls down, and I fall down, and I'm like, I'm very lucky I didn't just break something. And then I check all my stuff, and it's like, okay, none of it's damaged. Oh, thank goodness.
So the fact that I could have something for years and it's still in great condition is not a great achievement in the world, but little achievement in the world.
I'm a huge fan of Realms of Chaos, the original, Warhammer Worlds of Chaos books, which maybe people know. Those books are so, at least for their time, they're very lavish, and the illustrations to this day are still very baroque and beautiful. And there are generators in those books for making a warband. You make like a chaos war. I don't know if you've ever done it.
I've got the books. I've never gone through and used
them. Oh yeah, you've got to. It's so fun. It's like, okay, there's certain kinds of character generation or GM, like random table generation, which you do at home, which are very fun because you're like meeting the character as you go. You're like, oh, look at you with your 12 wisdom, 3 strength. I know who you are. And then you're like, oh, you have only this skill. And the sequence of rolling and finding out the things in order makes you meet and get the idea, and you're learning it, and it's fun because you're going to use it. You're seeing the potential as you do it. It's like when you go buy a car, and you're going to drive it, and you're like, ooh, well, if I drive this, it's like this, and if I drive this car, it's like that, and if I drive a Jeep, it'll be like this, and if I drive this Corvette, it's like you're interacting with something that you're learning about, but in a very functional way, and so that makes it more exciting. So when you roll up your Chaos Champion, if you're actually going to use it, then you're like, ooh, he's got 4 goat men. Maybe I should give them spears, or should I give them morning stars? But that process is fun. And I've made several generators for different games where they're kind of based on those tables and how they're fun. They're really elaborate. You never know where you're going to end up. Traveler character generation is probably the first thing that was really like this in games. But the thing that I keep coming back to is that almost none of them are ever as fun as the Warhammer Warband generator, because the whole time you're using it, you're in the Warhammer book. You're flipping back and you're in that world, and you keep seeing that world and keep being with that book, which feels like a Lovecraftian tome. And and it adds this, and it's one of those game puzzles I'm always trying to crack. Like, how do I make something that's as fun as this? Because I've made a lot of generators that I find very useful. They get me to a thing, and they do it efficiently, and often far more efficiently than that game. But the fun of being in that world with that book. And of course, I could never do it with my own book because I'm used to my own pictures. I made them. They're never going to be mysterious to me. But the fun of being you're in that book in an almost grimoire-like way. You are using it and turning the pages and researching in it, and you are in an almost magical connection to that book. And the physical production of it, with all the borders and all the bullshit and all the weird calligraphy, all of that is really part of it in a way that I appreciate, despite not being a record collector. That's a challenge, because the other, to balance that or make it work with efficiency, something that genuinely you're going to because those books can be a nightmare to use and find stuff in there. It's just that it's a fun nightmare, but it can be like fuck, explaining to someone else. I'm like, yeah, well, you got to use this, but you got to go to the PDF for the, and but if you're using it, it's this, but it's not this. Oh, okay. So if you're generating a warband for a demonic battle, then you get D4 plus 4 rewards, but you can choose how many rewards. And it's just like, it's good that it's poorly organized because you're looking at it more. And that kind of book, there's something in it I would love to crack. Like, how do I get that pleasure of the text while still giving people a fucking game that they can fucking use,
Well, I would like to point out that the reason I'm able to follow this conversation, the reason I have those books, is because I bought those books knowing I'd probably never play or run Warhammer again. Back in the day, I had other books in the Warhammer line that were very influential to how I look at how to present role-playing stuff. But, when I decided I wanted all that around me again, it was like, okay, yes, I know what you're talking about because of my record collector mentality.
Another one that's really fun was not the Marvel RPG, although it's not a bad RPG, but the DC RPG with the point system, which, again, I don't love the point system, but something about that book and its physical production makes making a superhero turning back and forth in the book fun. And I think it might be just like, oh, there's the skills, and they're like, oh, there's that panel from Batman, 486, and like every idea in the book is illustrated with a little person that I have ideas about and like a connection to, and so it's fun. Like the Call of Cthulhu book is wonderful, wonderfully efficient, and I like Call of Cthulhu. But when you make a character in there, like nothing, you're not looking at anything fun, like there's not, like the skills are a list of skills. They work perfectly well, but who cares?
You have an idea of how you want to present something, and that has actual utility, and not simply the use of the book, but making you want to use the book, which seems to me to be more useful than the book actually being useful. If you want to use it, you'll deal with any shit to make it work.
No, I mean, that's the moral of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like, if you want to use it, you will do anything to make the game work.
I mean, ideally, it's very attractive and inviting and useful. But of the two, the attractive, I think, will draw people in more. And when you're talking about wanting to crack the magic of a certain book because of how it works, both in its use and its presentation, this is role playing. There are people that'll fucking do the job. Okay. Now, this is actually very relevant to the record collector mentality and also product design. Because Nebulith, Molly designed the covers and didn't want the promo text on the back cover. But I was thinking, well, wait a minute, there's like nothing. Let's just put it there instead of paying for one of these, little mini jackets on the back. And I was stupid. And this is a very, very good movie. I saw it when it came out, saw it at Night Visions. But, let me show you here. Just look at the cover. It's all fucking ads and promo and 4 stars and one of the best, smartest, and scariest horror films I've ever seen, says Eli Roth. And now I have to look at that forever every time I pick this up. And then I picked up this box set. This got the Ghost of Yotsuya, the Snow Woman, and the Bride from Hades. And this is an absolutely beautiful set. This is something when I pick it up and I look at it, I'm not ever going to look at this and go, "Oh my god, these fucking morons."
Like I always, one thing that I always say is like, oh, the illustrations in RPGs are more important than a lot of people think. But a big part of it is just showing you that the author has a taste and a sensibility, which they can't communicate immediately on the cover of their book just by writing. But if I know that they've chosen this design and they've chosen this art, then not as much as a film, but they have good taste, at least to some degree, that might align with mine. And that makes me way more interested in the rules and the book because we're pursuing a similar end.
I think the Lamentations core book, the rules, I mean, some of the flavor text, is communicating the tone of the game, but it's largely the art, especially that center color section, that really communicates what this game is meant to do. And that's all presentation and almost no text as far as communicating that. It's like the rules are just the rules, but look what we're going to do. This is,
but also integrating them, integrating them so that you can't use a rule without seeing art. Yeah, I think just constantly seeding your ideas into any attempt to work with the book as simply as a rule book is a really good idea, and it's maybe it's the secret sauce, because there are people on the internet making wonderfully usable little widgets for RPGs all the time, and we ignore them. Like I've made all text documents. I mean, you'll be like, oh, that's a nice rule set. They'll read the blog. But like when you put the pictures in and you make it so you have to look at the pictures to see the things, it's really a force multiplier, because now when Vornheim first came out, you were seeing these actual play reports people would send that were stuff I was not in the book, but they understood the idea of what Vornheim's supposed to be like, and so they could invent their stuff. It's when people start to be able to fanfic it themselves is when you've done a good job, and often that doesn't involve your rules. And of course, that's exactly the fucking opposite of a lot of like internet nerd analysis of games. Like if you are making up a bunch of rules, then you're not playing the game that was written, and it means the book is poorly designed. I was like, no, if you're making up rules, it means it's perfectly, like Vampire the Masquerade, where no one uses any of those rules anymore and they're all LARPing, was wonderfully designed because those people picked up that book and were like, I need to live here. And they're like, the rest I will fucking figure out, but I need to put on my fucking fangs and get the fuck out there right now. You can't say that's poorly made,
Yeah,
Tim Bradstreet made people want to be vampires.
Yeah, the whole thing with role-playing books is all they are imagination engines and inspiration. If you're only picking up an RPG book and parroting back what's in that book, it's not doing its job. It's supposed to be like the prison, like the Pink Floyd cover. It's like, here's the RPG book, and then here's the output,
Mm.
Yeah.
But I also think there's something, if you said, hey, James, you need some inspiration, you'd be like, no, I have a million ideas already. Right? But I think part of it is not just inspiration. It's like, it's a very specific kind of inspiration where something that didn't seem like that exciting now seems like a very exciting thing to think about. Like, Gary Gygax could make you go, yes, but which axe on a stick do I want? Do I want the goose arm? Do I want a speedum? There's a whole universe there. Like the fucking Deities and Demigods. You're like, pick that book up and you're like, there's not a single fucking useful thing in the whole book. But you're like, and my characters are never going to China. Why am I reading this? And you're like, wait, he's a 3-armed lizard god? Like, and he has a magic wind bag? like suddenly, like I didn't know this could be fun. A lot of like really good supplements are basically like someone takes something, the most boring concept, and they're like, but what if that's not actually boring? Another book that's a lot like that is the Dungeon Master's Guide, that the original AD&D one. Like, there's something about the thickness and rabbit hole quality of that book.
Yeah.
Where you're like, yeah, I'll generate a random dungeon using these tables, because you just kind of it's even if Gary is a weirdo, it's fun being inside his mind in that book.
I think the Dungeon Master's Guide is, and the AD&D rules in particular, especially if you've never seen any of the basic versions, is like textbook example of, oh, I want to make this work, so I'm going to, go to any lengths to make this all make sense. Because a lot of that stuff in there is like the organization and strict utility. It's like exploring a dungeon and finding treasures more than being,
absolutely. You're like, how do I? This is fascinating. How do what do I fucking do with it? Like, does you touch it here? Listen up. Is there a password? Like, does it act? And that's there. And that book, of course, it's probably not so much because of the physical presentation. It's just how early in the curve it was, and how totemically old and important it is. But like,
just being a hardcover, though, it seemed very impressive. I mean, I didn't come into it till a few years later, but the fact that these things were in hardcover and apparently made of the best material ever to make books with, because the binding still holds up on those, especially the early printings.
Yeah.
Jeez, there's something about the presentation that seems impressive. I mean, it's like an occult tome that, trying to understand and make use of it. But the presentation definitely, especially at the time, was like, oh my God, this is the most awesome thing.
Yeah, I think if you can somehow combine them, you get the most bang for your buck. Because, like, the thing about a really nice volume of whatever, like a book, you pull it off the shelf, you flip through it, you're like, this is beautiful. Cover's beautiful. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. But 99.9% of it is like a bunch of pages that look pretty much the same, right? You're like, oh, that's a page in a book. That's also a page in a book. And then suddenly you're almost getting more out of it before you open it than you are, in the middle. But a role-playing book, every page can be different and can work in a different way. That's very exciting conceptually somehow to me. It's like you turn the page and you're like, what's this? Like, how do I use this table? What do we do here? And then to somehow, the more utility it has, the more the beauty of all that stuff comes out, because the more you have to go back and forth through it. The more you can have utility and it's gorgeous, the more you experience both of those things, right? Like you're getting the friction of being up against them is more increased, because they're like, you have to experience both to just get anything, to get through it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember when I first got the AD&D Player's Handbook, more so than the basic set. When I got the AD&D Player's Handbook, when I got the second edition AD&D Player's Handbook, how I would just use reams and reams of paper, just rolling up characters for no reason. And this
I didn't tell you that was happening because I thought it'd be funny on the video.
Okay. I cannot lean back. Okay. This is I would just make characters for no reason, just nothing I was ever going to play, because I always ran games when I was younger.
But you meet them, like, and sometimes you do use, and that's so fun. Like, I make a bunch, like I made a villain generator. It's one of the things I did for Cube World. And it doesn't, it's a PDF. It wasn't heavy. I couldn't have illustrated it. I didn't have enough time to illustrate it the way but it was basically heavily based on trying to crack the code of those warband generators in Warhammer. And it's really fun to meet these guys. Like, and then, 3, months later when you're running a game, you're like, I need a villain, I need an NPC, and you remember them, this guy, and you're like, oh, that's a guy. He has this going on. And because, I mean, a part of the thing of art in general is to render ideas memorable, right? Like, anybody can remember that, you probably shouldn't, like, fall in love when you're 16 and kill yourself, like, right away. But Romeo and Juliet makes it memorable, like, everybody, you never really know what people are like. You don't know what they're thinking. But the Lady and the Tiger story it renders that idea concrete and memorable. That experience had an effect on your later ability to write games and create characters.
I don't know, because the experience I had, because AD&D has a ton more options than basic, and my thing is based on basic. And I look at the character in Lamentations of the Flame Princess not as this. I couldn't imagine someone obsessively just rolling up dozens or 100 characters in Lamentations just to do it, because
because they don't have any.
I see the character as just like a window into the game. Character's your view into the game. The character isn't the game.
I find it in different ways. I think you make your LTFP character and they're under-described as a human, but then you play them and they become somebody. Like Graham, your character that you play is a very specific dude now. After 2 or 3 years of activity, like he's a really strange person with a lot of characteristics, but he's accumulated them. And that, like, but a basic technique of fiction is deciding the order in which you introduce information to people, right? Like, you might not say someone's, like, a character's real name until the 5th act, so both character generation and playing a character are slowly introducing a person to the table, like, oh, he has blonde hair, he's a fighter, now he's this miniature, now he's that miniature, now he has magic armor, now he dresses like a necromancer, now he has a horse named Clyde, now he has a 3-legged horse named Clyde. Clyde is slower than other horses, but he keeps riding him anyway. By 12th level, he's just a complete freak. But the way you learn about a character in fiction, in a novel, you're like slowly learning who this person is. And I think that feeling is often underappreciated when we just look for efficiency. And that's the fun.
Well, it's interesting what you were saying is I realize, was it 2.5 years of playing Graham? I have no conception, no idea. I have never thought about what Graham looks like.
I just assume he looks basically like you. He's wearing a necromancer costume.
Yeah, well, that to me is when Graham became the character. When he took Sega Thane's armor and decided, I'm going to pretend to be Sega Thane. Because I think on that first dungeon, it was just the two of us going into a D&D dungeon that was designed for a party. And it's like, okay, I don't want to fight anything. We're just all going to die. So what are the ways to basically Batman this dungeon? My thought process is, how do we avoid rolling the dice to solve all the problems? But that particular way of, okay, Graham now takes on the appearance and starts trying to act like the bad guy in order to have the other bad guys not attack, that snowballs what Graham is to be.
He became what he pretended to be, because now he's got all these underlings and each one has been tortured in some sickening way because he's been used to experiment on, like, oh, you hireling, drink that. You hireling, put this on. You hireling, let's resurrect you sideways, like, and now he is the necromancer that he pretended to be.
Yeah.
But that's fun, right? Learning that person is so much of the fun of the game. Is like, oh, and some games, they front load that. And when you make generators for DMs, you kind of want to front load that. Like, okay, so this is your dungeon and it was like this. And then it got like a better version of Seclusium of Orphone would do that. Right? You'd be like, who's this wizard? What did they do? What
You
happened?
have Seclusium on the brain. You opened with Seclusium.
Yeah, because I'll tell you why. Because I was very excited when I saw that book at first. I like a generator for a dungeon, and I realized over time that the best way to do that is you have to decide it's a specific kind of dungeon, and then you can do it well. And he had done that. He had said, like, oh, this is about wizards' towers, and they're done this. So I was excited about that book, and I was like, for me, that's almost like the failed version of this Realms of Chaos, like warband generator that I love, is like, that book, like, it was like, oh, this is exactly a kind of book I would love to make or that somebody should make. And it just didn't, after you make 2 or 3 of them, you realize you are just making choices from a bunch of choices, then you know what they are. And the magic isn't there. There's something about the way the tables are constructed that just doesn't make you sit around and want to make wizards towers all day. And I'm a guy who wants to sit around and make wizards towers all day, And so it is for me an example of like how, like, you can have do a lot of things right, but if you don't approach it experientially, like when I play, when I roll, when I sit down to draw out my little dungeon, what's it feel like? What happens in what order? How does these things build on each other? Everybody we know. That magic of your first piece of graph paper, and then you're like, oh, and then you've drawn a shape before you know what it is, right? Then you have a puzzle. What goes here? And then you get a little older, and you're like, what goes here that makes sense with that going there? And you've got a little problem to solve, and then you solve it, and then the dungeon has a little more character. It's like, oh, it's underground, and then there's an acid pool. And then the acid pool, well, who's using the acid pool? Are they avoiding it? Are the monsters avoiding it? Is there bones inside? And you start to solve these problems, and a story starts to develop on its own, and it's magical. It's wonderful. And the way a book is made, to get back to the record collector thing, can make that more magical, and it makes the thing that you created in the end, you're so excited to use it. And you remember all of it. And the more you remember, the easier it is to run. You can pull a random dungeon. You can make one, like press a button on the internet and they'll give you a random dungeon. That will work. And you can have fun with it. But if you didn't make it stage by stage or didn't experience it somehow stage by stage, it's harder to run because you don't remember it. It doesn't all fit together as a thing in your mind. The easier you know a world, I know Dark Sun, 17, whatever world Star Trek, whatever, the easier it is to run a game there. Because you need to make up something that fits, like, oh, what's a person that would fit? What's a NPC that would fit? What's a building that would fit? What's the food that would fit? What would you go hunting for? The more aesthetically whole those things are, the easier it is to improvise. You put me in the middle of like that Dragonlance world, I'd be like, I don't I don't know what fits in here. Like it doesn't help me because it's not aesthetically complete. And I think maybe making a beautiful book makes it more aesthetically complete. It makes it more memorable. It makes it easier to run. Like Carcosa is a beautiful book. It's so easy to improvise Carcosa shit because you know what Carcosa is about so fully because of the way that book is put together.
About the Carcosa book, when I was talking to the printer about how the book should look, what materials we should use, I knew the answer was going to be no, but I felt that I had to ask if they could use human skin as the cover binding material. The answer was no. And then later on, I wanted to put my blood in the ink for the Death Frost Doom throwback reprint a few years ago, and I even I even offered to go get my blood tested, and was going to have it drawn by a professional, and I just got the note back: no bodily fluids in the ink, please.
But you could always sign it in blood and have a special edition. People would go for that. I mean, really, all you have to do is get some ink and then get some of your blood and pour it in the ink bottle.
See, my great intellect is thinking, well, just have a thumbtack on the table and just constantly poke my finger and sign with my finger. And I don't do vinyl for a few reasons. number one, they're twice as expensive and take up more than twice as much space. So I would get to experience less. Plus the fact actually using vinyl is so much more inconvenient than a CD. Yeah, that's
I have a friend who's he's like, you know, a recording engineer, and he plays all these instruments, just audiophile. And so we were listening to records in his like little shed, which he has converted to a music studio. And we were listening to vinyl, and his record player is this special kind that is relatively rare. Instead of having a fixed arm that just goes like that, it has one that electronically moves like that, so that it never moves. You know, like it doesn't. It's not at an angle. It just, you know, like it's this one, and it kept breaking. And I was like, Justin, like, why don't you just get it replaced and get another one? He's like, because this one sounds like, I like how this one sounds. And it's from the 70s in like Norway. And like, he can hear the difference in a way I never will. And I feel so bad for him, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, bro. Like it sucks to be that aware. Other than yours, like, were there any RPG books where you're like, this is a wonderful presentation, a record collector mentality book that you value?
Let me make sure I got the Outcast Silver Raiders box.
Okay.
That was just a couple of years ago when I
That's
saw
one
that.
with like the illustrations that are all in black and red.
Yeah, and I thought actually the illustrations reminded me of Jez's style.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but just that whole package and how it had a definite vibe to it, and it seemed mean, it seemed nasty, it seemed ready to go for the throat, and it was this big impressive package, and it was like, holy shit! Like
you were kind of ahead of the curve on that slipcase, that whole thing, like that.
Yeah, when I see fancy books, like when I was at Play Bologna, the big one in Italy, seeing how fancy everyone's books were and all the special things, like the people that hosted me, they were selling a book where each book was encased in concrete, and when somebody bought one, they like put on the hard hat, took a sledgehammer, and had to like smash the concrete to get the book they bought. And it was something they were just doing at the convention because they weren't, they're not doing mail order where they got to ship a concrete block around the continent. But I was like looking at that, and it's like, geez, okay.
I mean, that's definitely obviously like a fun marketing moment, but like that is the point where my brain goes, this game must suck, right? Like if you need, like, it's that detached from the experience of reading and using, like, then what are we even doing here? I don't ever think of Gunpowder Europe as boring or colorless or like a brown painting of some Rembrandt guys walking around, because Games Workshop made that world this colorful place of lunacy, Well,
even the British products for Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, the stuff that TSR published from Britain had such a different vibe than the stuff that was being produced out of Lake Geneva.
Yeah, if people don't know, basically Games Workshop that did Warhammer 40K and Warhammer came out of, was a lot of the group of the people who did TSR UK. They did like 3 or 4 UK modules, which look very different, have cool art, and didn't sell very well. They're not talked about a lot. And they did White Dwarf magazine, which was in the beginning just a British D&D magazine, or role-playing magazine. Those guys all later formed the core of the Games Workshop team. But yeah, they had
Folio was also the British team, so
I think part of it was they looked at D&D and they're like, this is medieval fantasy. This is ours. Yeah. Like, we're British. Like it would be like as if the Japanese made a Western and we all liked it, but we were like, this isn't what the West is like, The
spaghetti Westerns. I mean, the Americans
sure. Exactly. Do you guys not know? Like, is every other building in your town not from the Middle Ages? You know, like, why isn't everything called something Shire? What are you doing? And I think that reclamation was a huge part of the style.
Was the Saltmarsh series done by the British? Even the Saltmarsh series, it seemed very differently structured as far as what you actually do than the other adventures. You know, this haunted house that's actually a front for smugglers that have this thing. And then here's the second adventure where, oh, you're going to go into the dungeon, but you're supposed to ally with these things, not kill them all, but nobody tells you that up front. And then the third adventure where it's like an undersea adventure, but you only have a very limited supply of things that let you go underwater. So, you know, you cannot clear this dungeon. That's not why you're there. So it's like what you're supposed to be doing isn't anything like what you're supposed to be doing in any of the other adventures, really.
Or, I mean, they sound like, you know, formative ideas, like for, you know, it sounds like something that you would be into, for judging from your LOTFP stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like keeping the Borderlands is wonderful, especially as a starter thing. It's like, okay, here's a home base. Yes.
How?
Because it gives you a home base. It gives you a little wilderness area to explore, and then gives you like this dungeon complex that has a number of different factions with their own alliances.
But they're all the same.
Well, they're all the same, but again, as a start,
over here, they're hobgoblins, and what's the difference? They have different hit points.
Yes, but as a starter adventure that you put in the basic set, I mean,
I've never understood the appeal at all. Like, anything could be a starter adventure. The one in the red box where there's a rust monster and Bargle, that was like interesting. It did the trick. There's that weird thing that's a trap, but it's not a trap. Like that, like each room has a personality. Like literally, when I put together that thing that was every single thing in Caves of Chaos on a two-page spread, like the whole map with a couple asterisks. I was like, fuck this dungeon. Like, fuck this dungeon. Like, you walk in there and you're like, will I fight gnolls or bugbears today? Like, there's an owl bear, and no, there should never be an owl bear in anything. But it's like, it makes it, to me, it makes those monsters so banal. You know, like the people remember Bree Yark because it's literally the only cultural detail that you get about the goblins. The only thing that makes them different than anyone else is the phrase Bree. Like it's an orc. It's like it's a bugbear. Is there a like? There's so it's so frustrating. Of course, on the other hand, like you have you have to picture a world where there are no dungeons. No one's ever done this, and you're like, fine. Yeah. But I hate it so much.
But that's what this was when you're introducing it. You know, here's the D&D set, and like, what do we do with this? And it has everything. You know, the caves that are closer to the ground, those are the kobolds and the goblins. Then you move up, and you got the orcs, and it's important if you're for a bunch of first level guys. It's very important whether you're fighting kobolds or bugbears. I mean, conceptually, I understand what you're saying, that it's not exciting, but all these banal differences are still differences that can make a huge difference to the actual gameplay.
Sure, but like I never played Caves of Chaos or even saw it until I was an adult. And I knew what a fucking dungeon was. It's all over all the other books, how to make a dungeon. Get a piece of graph paper and you put a trap and you put a monster and you put another monster. I mean, it's not rocket science.
I had to keep on the Borderlands before I ever saw any rules.
Maybe that's it. You know, like it was the Fascinator, right? Like if I saw that before I'd seen anything else, I'd probably be fascinated with it. You know, like a genuinely like, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. But after knowing what a dungeon is, which I learned from the red box, from the Menser red box, I didn't need and I was always mystified by people who got into modules right away. It seemed like a rich kid thing. I was like, number one, I got to get $17 more out of my mom. Like, how?
were
I mean, no,
$6
but number
back in
two,
1980.
I didn't know that, but even $6 is epic. That was huge. That was
Two
3
Star
weeks
Wars
of
figures.
balance at
Two
best.
Star Wars figures.
Yeah, but Star Wars figures I was not buying. Like they would, Christmas. The idea of getting it was one thing, but it said in the book, this phrase, it said, you can buy them, you can use the modules we made, or make your own. And that make your own, that was so exciting. Like I could make up my own. Well, and the whole game is like, isn't it fun to make stuff up? I was like, I didn't understand the people who immediately their interest, their beginning in the game was from like, oh, I didn't know how to run dungeons, so I had modules. So I was like, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna make it. Like this can be so good. I mean, that's just me, but like when you tell an 8-year-old they can make up whatever they want, like
the Hobbit movies. I have no idea why I watched all 3 of them, but I went every year. New one came out. I went and watched it, and I liked them for only one reason, or they had only one useful effect. Because for 10 years, I had been annoyed at the Lord of the Rings movies. All the little changes they made to the books, and listening to the commentary and Peter Jackson talking about how Tolkien was narratively incorrect at this point, and I'm just like, no, you son of a bitch. But then I watched the Hobbit movies, and I liked the Lord of the Rings movies a whole lot more.
spoken like a true grog.
Yeah.
The third Hobbit movie is the best Warhammer fantasy battle movie ever.
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought what's his name? The Scottish comedian that was doing the.
Oh yeah, Billy Connolly.
Billy Collins. Yeah.
It's
like yeah.
Yeah, that I so good. But do you feel hurt when it's done wrong? Not just I don't want to watch this, but you're like you've stung like everybody watches a bad movie, but if it's a bad movie that's somehow attached to something that you like, do you feel? Does the process are you that sensitive about it? Like
it depends. Like when I started kindergarten, I was trying to tell my teacher my real name was Luke Skywalker, because the stories have power. It's weird because they're both fiction, but if the fiction connects with you, then these characters are in a lot of ways just as real to me as real people.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's something about like you can talk about them with another person the same way you might talk about a mutual acquaintance. Like, oh, Cyclops did this. I think that I never got into that mindset of fandom because at a pretty young age, I decided I didn't want to read the issues with bad art. So right away, I had this idea of that's not canon if it didn't have good art. And so when they start, bastardizing some beloved franchise, I'm just like, that's the, Vince Coletta issue.
The one thing I hate.
Well, the one thing you hate. I've been wondering if you hated anything.
The one thing I hate is there'll be like a re-release of an old album, and they stick bonus tracks at the end. I understand why that happens, except when it happens on fucking concept albums. Like, you'll have a fucking concept album that tells a goddamn story, and then here's a live track with a song from 3 albums ago. It's like, fuck you. Fuck you.
Sounds really exhausting being you.
Yes, it is. Very.
I can't be the first person who has said this.
No, you're not. Oh, I'm well aware of how exhausting it is to be me. I just wish everyone would get their shit together so it would be less exhausting for me.
Okay, how would it be best for everyone else to organize society so that you're never irritated? What can we do?
The first rule of morality is try not to be in anyone's way. The amount of people that will just congregate in front of doors, in front of the escalators, on the stairs, in the middle of the tunnel and stop, like 3 people pushing their baby carriages, now blocking the whole fucking thing so I can't just walk.
You experience being out among people as a thing to be made as short as possible so you can get from one room that has all your stuff in it to another room which has stuff you would like to buy in it and then back again. Like, you want tunnels.
No. Tunnels would be the worst because they would be fucking clogged with people.
No,
Wide
secret
open
tunnels.
space.
Underground tunnels from where you live to the places that you need to go. Like Jack Nicholson used to have that tunnel under his house to the Playboy Mansion.
Well, how about we make the secret tunnels and put all the other people in the tunnels?
So the whole world, you could just walk around.
Yes.
Okay, so the perfect convenient paradise for you is everyone lives in a dungeon and you live on the surface.
Helsinki actually does have an extensive tunnel system.
You're not using it!
Well, it's not open to the general public.
Well, why don't you get them down there?
I'm thinking about that.
Get in the tunnel.
I hadn't thought of that. That get everyone else in the tunnels, and I don't have to deal with this shit anymore.
Maybe you could lure them with some kind of bait.
That would solve so many of my problems.
All right. Well, fantastic. James has been educated. Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of Educating James. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
And I'll see you later.
Bye.
Hello. It is the morning after the conversation with Zak, and there was something that he seemed surprised by that I don't think I had the best comeback for at the time. And while at the gym this morning, I thought of something better to say. So hopefully Zak can insert this in at the proper point, if that's appropriate, since this isn't part of the spontaneous conversation. But Zak seemed surprised that after he had recommended Akira Kurosawa's Rant movie, he called it his, Kurosawa's best movie, he seemed surprised that I went out and bought it blind, basically. Didn't stream it, didn't check it, just bought it. And he seemed to think that was a strange thing to do. And I don't think so, because I now have an investment in this movie. I took Zak's recommendation seriously. He's just written a Japanese Asian theme book, and he specifically in the inspiration section of that mentions this movie. And Zak knows a thing or two about the arts, so yeah, I took the recommendation seriously and decided to invest in the movie. I didn't even look to see if it was on a streaming service here. There was no thought other than, okay, that's what I'm going to buy. I've never seen any Kurosawa. I should. And they had a version at the local store that's got the English subtitles, so now I'm invested in this movie. When I sit down to watch it, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to pay attention. Well, you have to with subtitles more than... with streaming, I'm paying €10 a month, and it's just so easy. 10, 15, 20 minutes thinking, oh, this isn't catching me. I'll shut it off. Or, oh, this part seems slow. I'm going to check my email. And I fall into that trap a lot. But actually investing in a thing that even if I don't like it, I'm going to sit down and at least understand, in my terms at least, what I'm looking at, and maybe why this was recommended, and why it is, and get whatever value I can out of this movie. I will get out of it, even if it's not to my taste. And I do think that's an important thing. So much of entertainment is just so disposable now. People treat it disposably. And I do that with a lot of stuff, but somebody whose opinions I respect on art, even we disagree a lot, but I respect the opinions, and so I want to take it seriously. And even if I hate the movie, even if I end up hating the movie, I've still, I got this at a physical shop, a specialty movie store. So they've gotten a little bit of money as encouragement to, be there, to stay open, to have a place where I can go
to get stuff that I might like without having to, order it by mail. The people that produce the disc, that they've gotten a little money to, yes, continue producing actual real things you can hold in your hand and not have something and just, delete off a server when licensing ends and oops, gone. There's so much, everything's better with physical media. And yeah, there's a possibility I've wasted my, what was this, 25 euros, I think. There's every possibility. There's lots of well-regarded movies by legendary directors that aren't to my taste. So what? That means I should just always avoid them. I mean, maybe I'll avoid other Kurosawa movies if I don't like this one, but I think I should sit down, and if I say I like movies, in general, I should be able to sit down and take the movie seriously, and it's easier to do that mentally if I've invested in it and have that much more motivation to sit down and fucking pay attention. So, yeah, I think I used to do, I bought stuff before the internet age where everything you were buying is like, maybe you saw a review, but you're mainly buying blind. So even the stuff you didn't like, you're still, you want to know what it is because you've spent money on it. You now know the thing. And it's so much better, I think. Maybe that's just me being old, but when I would log on to Netflix and see hundreds and hundreds of things, that is just it's an overused word, but it just looks like slop. It's all slop. Well, no, this is now real to me, and I will sit down at some point and I will watch it, and I will get what I can out of it, and then with the physical stuff. Yeah, I know you can probably download all this stuff too, but I never do that. But it's got full-length documentaries on Kurosawa. Well, that might be useful to me because I hadn't seen any of his movies before. All sorts of little features and behind-the-scenes stuff. So not only can I watch the movie, I can learn about a kind of cinema that I'm not familiar with and get that much more familiar and learn more about, I know it's pretentious to say this, but the arts in some way that I didn't already know. So yeah, I got no problem going out and just buying something and try it out if it's by some, not any damn thing, but if somebody has a good recommendation for something from someone that's important, then yeah, okay, this is now going to be a part of my life. More than just, I clicked on the thing and maybe paid attention to it. Because that's not quite so automatic these days to keep that attention. And now I'm rambling, so yeah, hopefully this is useful.